My name is Omar Bailey, and today I will be discussing utilitarianism and how it came to be. Utilitarianism was developed by British philosophers John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham. Utilitarianism emphasizes utility or consequences. Actions are judged based on whether they produce more positive than negative consequences. It offered a series of common sense solutions to moral dilemmas. It essentially boiled down to what action would result in the greatest good for society. Sounds like something that is the right thing to do in pretty much most cases, right? Well, there's some flaws in this system, and the textbook mentions one of them with a prison guard example. Let's say there's a prison guard who was alleged in killing a high security inmate. He for sure, he for sure did not do it. But all of the prisoners engage in a riot, and they will not stop until this prison guard admits he did it. What is the guard to do? Well, in this scenario based on utilitarianism, he is to give in to the demands and admit he did something wrong, even though he most certainly did not do those actions. Essentially, this is coercion, which was mentioned in the first module, and it also trickles in a bit into the second chapter of the textbook. The final critique I'll address comes from one of the most famous philosophers, personally also one of my favorite, Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant and the people who followed his ideologies, known as Kantians, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, they followed this one famous quote by him. Just because something gives many people pleasure doesn't make it right. It's pretty straightforward. So even though this seems to be a common sense approach and it is directed towards the greater good of society, the system is severely flawed. Another hypothetical scenario is there's a burning building with a baby and 10 old men inside. Who do you save if you can only save one or the other options? Do you save the one single baby, or do you save the 10 old men? Who are you to decide which life or lives is more valuable in this situation? Again, utilitarianism is not a bona fide system. As for my real life example, I'm going to refer to an incident from my childhood that is similar in nature to these hypothetical scenarios. It differs from my previous examples because it shows how one of the flaws discussed earlier it's a favorable outcome given the circumstances. But I'm going to go ahead and give you just the one spoiler that it still doesn't bring justice, which is one of the flaws noted. So to get things started, I'm going to start off with my father was harsh and strict. I guess he got that way from his discipline in the military. He had a personality that displayed fear was more important than love. His preferred method of punishment was corporal punishment. So I was about 5 years old, and I remember my father calling down to each one of his kids to come to his bedroom. At the time, I didn't know why he was calling us downstairs, but I could tell by his tone it wasn't good. After everyone was done talking to him, each one of the kids went to their separate rooms and were instructed not to speak to each other. It was finally my turn to go, and I had a sense of anxiety and confusion. My dad got straight to the point. He asked me, did I go through his stuff and start opening things that didn't belong to me in his closet? If you lie, I'm going to whip all of you since no one wants to admit to it. I was shook. I didn't have the slightest idea what he was referring to. In my head, I had to decide. I could tell the truth and get whooped, or I could lie and save my siblings from the pain. Either way, I was getting whooped. So I decided to say I did it, not knowing I was in store for a good old-fashioned butt whooping that I would come to remember well into adulthood. In conclusion, utilitarianism was a major stepping stone not only in communicating and persuasion, but also for social justice. It was an early foundation on how to decide what would be an ethical solution to dilemmas, and you would have to weigh your options, and that would essentially persuade you to a final decision. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the video.